Welcome everyone to our fun little study group for PP 5340. Today we're diving into the required readings, specifically Chapter 3 of Race and Social Equity, a Nervous Area of Government. So, let me ask you this. Have you ever been in a workplace conversation about race and just felt kind of nervous? That fear of saying the wrong thing or maybe even saying nothing at all? Well, it turns out there's a name for that. Today we're going to explore why these discussions can become a nervous area of government and what that means for all of us. Let's get right into it.
This quote right here really sets the stage, doesn't it? It gets straight to the heart of the challenge. This is a conversation we absolutely need to have, especially in public service. But man, it is rarely an easy one.
So, what exactly is this nervous area the book is talking about? Well, it's a term they use to describe that feeling in a professional setting, that discomfort and, apprehension that pops up around the topic of race. But to really get it, we need to look at what nervousness actually means in this specific context. Now, this is really interesting. We're not just talking about getting the jitters before a presentation. The text defines nervousness as a specific emotional state that's actually rooted in fear. When people perceive a conversation about race as dangerous, dangerous to their reputation, their work relationships, maybe even their career, it can trigger these defensive behaviors that totally shut down any chance of a productive talk. And that brings us right to the root cause of all this nervousness. The book argues it's not just some vague anxiety. It's a bunch of specific, really powerful fears that are all related to what it calls race talk. And dealing with these fears at work, well, there's actually a term for that. It's called emotional labor. It's basically all that hidden work you do to manage your feelings so you can keep up a professional appearance. So when the topic is race, that emotional labor often means bottling up fear or discomfort just to seem calm and collected. It becomes this unspoken and totally exhausting part of the job that can lead straight to burnout. And here they are, the specific fears that are driving all that nervousness. Do you see the pattern here? It's like a minefield of double binds. You're afraid to speak up, but you're also afraid not to participate. You're scared of being labeled a racist, but also scared of being called a race baiter. It's this constant tension that fuels all that emotional labor we were just talking about. So in response to all these fears, people naturally come up with coping strategies. But, and this is the key point, the text argues that the most common ones are actually counterproductive. Sure, they might make you feel safer in the moment, but they prevent any real progress on social equity. Let's take a look at a few of them. First up, strategic color blindness. You've probably heard this a million times. Things like, I don't see color, I just see people. And while the intention might be good, the research in the chapter shows it often just backfires. It can come across to people of color as a refusal to even acknowledge their reality and can actually signal a greater racial prejudice, not a lesser one. Okay, let's move on to the next strategy, assimilation. You can think of this as the old melting pot idea, where the whole goal is to focus on a single, homogeneous culture, which is usually the dominant one. In a public agency, this might sound something like, well, we have to focus on the needs of the vast majority, which ends up casually minimizing or just straight up ignoring the very real and often very different needs of minority groups. This one is so incredibly common. This is when personal anecdotes get treated like they're hard data. Someone shares one story and presents it as if it represents an entire group's experience. The problem? It lets these personal, unverified stories take the place of a real, data-driven analysis of a situation. And that can have some really serious consequences. Right, so here's the crucial point. These aren't just abstract theories about communication. These individual coping mechanisms, all driven by fear, can lead directly to real, tangible, systemic inequities in public services. The chapter gives a fantastic example of exactly how this can happen. So picture this. You're in a meeting and someone brings up a concern that maybe snow removal services are slower in minority neighborhoods. But instead of pulling the data, looking at GPS logs from the plows or call records, colleagues just start sharing their personal stories. Well, my street got plowed just fine. And based on a few anecdotes like that, the agency director concludes there's no problem and just drops the whole issue. Just think about that for a second. How does that happen? The desire to avoid a nervous conversation becomes so powerful that anecdotes start to feel more real than actual data. It's a defense mechanism that ends up protecting a potential injustice instead of actually investigating it. Okay, so after laying out the whole problem, the chapter doesn't just leave us there, thankfully. It offers a path forward by showing us some more effective strategies for engaging in race talk, ways to move us away from fear and avoidance and toward a really productive dialogue. The text points to two effective strategies. Cultural pluralism is a pretty good start. It values racial and ethnic differences instead of trying to ignore them. But the chapter argues that the multicultural mosaic is the better model. So why is it better? Because it goes one critical step further by explicitly acknowledging that oppression exists through structural and institutional arrangements. So the multicultural mosaic isn't just about celebrating diversity. It's about understanding the historical and institutional context that shapes the outcomes we see today. It accepts that racial differences in how public services get delivered are often the result of systemic factors, not just individual actions. This whole framework values working across our differences to tackle those very factors. And that brings us to the end of our little breakdown for today. The biggest takeaway here is moving from that fear-based avoidance to a more honest, data-informed conversation. So I'll leave you with this final thought. In your own work, the next time one of these nervous conversations comes up, what's one step, just one, that you can take to gently guide it away from personal anecdotes and toward a more structural, multicultural mosaic perspective? That's really the challenge for all of us.